The story begins at an airport where the last flight of the day is about to take off. Reports are coming in from around the world that a new virus is spreading rapidly, causing people to become violent and attack others by biting them. As a result, the airport will close after this final flight. Flight attendants Pola and Janice begin preparing the cabin. Captain Frost and co-pilot Wilsey assure them that everything should be manageable since it is the last flight and only a few passengers are expected. Wilsey mentions that he has been feeling unwell since the afternoon, so he brought some medicine in case his condition gets worse. As departure time approaches, the attendants begin boarding the passengers. The first passenger is George, a teenager traveling alone to meet his parents in another city. Also on board are an elderly couple, Bev and Kinston. Kinston suffers from a medical condition that prevents him from speaking or moving. Other passengers include Army Doctor Shyla, an elderly woman named Louie, who is traveling with her pet cat, and a young couple, Neil and Suzanne, who are expecting a baby. Flight attendant Jenny asks everyone to return to their seats. A passenger named Henry hurriedly tries to place his pet rat's cage into an overhead compartment. Another passenger, Ruff, helps him, but the rat suddenly bites Ruff. Since the cage does not fit, Jenny asks Henry to place it in the cargo compartment with the luggage. Another passenger, Preston, is coughing constantly, which catches co-pilot Wilsey's attention. Once everyone is seated, the plane finally takes off. Soon after, an argument breaks out between the expecting couple and Henry over his pet rat. Jenny calms everyone down. Henry explains that he is a scientist and believes people around the world have become increasingly rude. Sometime later, new reports reveal that the virus has spread across the globe, and governments are urging everyone to quarantine. Meanwhile, Ruff, who was bitten by the rat, begins acting strangely. Jenny notices him sitting quietly while making disturbing noises. She rushes over to check on him. Suddenly, Ruff vomits all over her. He screams in panic, saying something is terribly wrong and begging them to land the plane. Pola arrives with a towel and helps Jenny handle the situation. Meanwhile, Louis's cat quietly slips downstairs unnoticed and begins eating Ruff's vomit. Jenny leaves Pola with Ruff and goes to clean herself up. By the time she returns, Ruff has completely changed. He suddenly charges from behind, knocks Jenny to the floor, and starts pounding on the cockpit door. Co-pilot Wilsey immediately locks the cockpit. Captain Frost contacts ground control and reports that a passenger has become extremely violent. After receiving updated information from the ground, they decide to make an emergency landing at the nearest airport. The other passengers rush in to restrain Ruff. However, he attacks anyone who gets close. Henry, Pola, and George eventually manage to restrain him with a leash. Meanwhile, Dr. Shayla checks everyone for injuries caused during the attack. Jenny is left completely shaken. She cannot understand why Ruff suddenly became so aggressive. A short time later, Captain Frost announces that they have been cleared for an emergency landing. He instructs everyone to return to their seats immediately. Despite the severe weather, the pilots begin landing the aircraft. The plane shakes violently during the descent, causing Ruff's head to hit nearby surfaces repeatedly. Pola lifts him up and straps him into a seat to keep him from getting hurt. However, while they are securing him, Ruff fully transforms into a zombie. He suddenly attacks Pola and bites into his face. He is about to attack Jenny as well, but the others grab him from behind. Realizing they can no longer control him, they lock him inside the airplane bathroom. By then, the plane has landed. Dr. Shyla quickly uses the emergency medical kit to bandage Pola's face and stop the bleeding. She warns everyone that the treatment is only temporary and that Pola must reach a hospital as soon as possible. Meanwhile, Captain Frost receives strict orders not to open the aircraft. Ignoring those instructions, he decides to taxi the plane toward the terminal because both Pola and Ruff are in critical condition. Outside, an airport employee named Ed notices the aircraft. He opens the door and begins helping the passengers evacuate one by one. Inside the plane, Captain Frost and Wilsey hold the bathroom door shut while the remaining passengers make their way out. However, Bev and Kinston are still inside because Kinston is unable to move. They stay behind, hoping help will arrive. Outside, Ed continues assisting the passengers. When he reaches the terminal gates, he discovers that every gate is locked. Even Ed is confused because he believes he is the last airport employee still inside, so Ed runs with the others toward another set of gates. However, they find the same situation there, with every door locked from the outside. They also notice that officials are watching them through the CCTV cameras, but no one is opening the doors. Everyone becomes terrified. They begin wondering what is happening. Why are they being kept captive? Just Just then, they hear several sirens. Looking through the windows, they see multiple police cars and ambulances arriving outside. However, no one allows them to leave. Soon, the windows are covered so they can no longer see outside. An announcement is made that no one is allowed to leave because the airport has been placed under quarantine. Everyone stays quiet until the next announcement. Many passengers begin calling their families to tell them they are trapped inside the airport. Some passengers become angry with Jenny and demand that she explain why they are not being allowed to leave. Jenny is trapped with them as well, so she has no answers. After some time, Dr. Shyla says that Pola's condition is getting worse. He was badly injured during the attack. She explains that she has medical supplies in her luggage that may help stabilize him. To get them, they need to retrieve her luggage from the aircraft's cargo compartment. Jenny and a few male passengers return to the plane. By now, the lights throughout the aircraft have started flickering. The group carefully searches the cabin. However, Captain Frost and co-pilot Wilsey, who had been holding the bathroom door shut, are nowhere to be found. Panicking, Jenny opens the bathroom door. Blood is splattered everywhere. Ruff is gone as well. They realize he must have escaped and attacked both pilots. The group moves forward cautiously. They soon notice Kinston sitting alone, completely unable to move. Terrified, they ask him what happened after they left and where the captain and co-pilot went. However, Kinston is unable to answer. The group quickly opens the cargo hatch and enters the storage area. While Jenny searches for Dr. Shayla's bag, Neil takes a gun from his luggage to protect his pregnant wife if anything goes wrong. They also discover that Henry's pet rats have escaped from their container. Moments later, Jenny finds co-pilot Wilsey lying in a pool of blood as he begins transforming into a zombie. Suddenly, Captain Frost, who has already turned into a zombie, attacks Jenny from above. To save her, Neil shoots Captain Frost, killing him instantly. At that moment, everyone realizes the virus is turning people into zombies that attack anyone nearby. They quickly gather their belongings and leave the aircraft. They also take Kinston with them. However, they soon discover that Preston has been bitten on the neck by Bev, who is also transformed and is trying to attack them. They trap Bev inside and return to the airport with Kinston. Dr. Shyla immediately begins treating Pola with the medical supplies. Meanwhile, Neil tells Suzanne that he had no choice but to shoot Captain Frost because he had become a zombie. The group blocks the doorway with a heavy table to stop zombie Bev from escaping. Jenny gathers everyone together. She explains that they are trapped because the zombie virus has spread among them. The police are refusing to let anyone leave, therefore they must stay together if they want to survive. She also explains that everything they saw in the news about the outbreak is real. Now they must work together to find a way out and return to their families. Meanwhile, Kinston notices a rat with glowing red eyes near him. Unable to speak, he cannot warn the others. The rat suddenly jumps onto him and bites him. Everyone witnesses the attack. They catch the rat and begin treating Kinston. However, they fear the bite may have infected him as well. Since Pola was also bitten earlier, they lock both of them inside a secure storage container so they cannot harm anyone if they transform. Ed examines the captured rat and notices a tag attached to its leg. This reveals that it is not an ordinary rat. It had been used in laboratory experiments. Since Henry brought the rats onto the plane, everyone starts accusing him of spreading the virus. Henry firmly denies the accusation. Jenny remembers that Henry had introduced himself as a scientist who worked in a laboratory. Henry insists he is innocent. He explains that if he had brought an experimental animal onto the flight, airport security would have stopped him. While they are arguing, Ruff suddenly rushes in from behind and attacks them. Hearing the commotion, the others quickly restrain him and tie him up. Just then, a message arrives from outside. The authorities announce that 4 police officers will enter the airport to inspect the situation and decide whether anyone can be released. Everyone gathers near the entrance with renewed hope. Moments later, 4 heavily protected officers enter carrying shields and firearms. They point their weapons at everyone, gather the survivors together, and confiscate the infected rat along with Neil's gun. The officers also carry several strange injections. They inject the injured Pola and Kinston with them. Meanwhile, the other passengers keep asking why they are not being allowed to leave. One of the officers explains that they cannot release anyone because they do not want to put the people outside at risk. He tells them that everyone must receive an injection first. If they show no signs of infection afterward, they will be allowed to leave. The passengers become terrified, wondering what the injections might do to them. Louis volunteers to receive the injection first. However, his pet cat suddenly bites him and runs away. The cat had wandered into the infected area and had become infected itself. The officers immediately begin shooting at the cat, attacks one of the officers and bites him. Another officer quickly shoots Kinston after noticing his condition and tries to carry the injured officer outside. However, the exit doors are locked. Using their weapons, the officers force the door open. One frightened passenger follows them outside. The moment they step out, the police outside open fire on them. Only one officer survives and manages to run back inside. The survivors pull him inside and demand to know what is happening outside. At the same time, more zombie noises begin echoing through the building. Everyone quickly rushes into a storage container and locks themselves inside. Meanwhile, Neil also begins transforming into a zombie. The others pull his wife, Suzanne, away from him before he can attack her. Inside the container, Dr. Shayla examines the injections the officers brought. She realizes that every syringe contains a different substance. This means the doctors outside still have no cure for the virus. Instead, they are testing different experimental treatments on infected people. Furious, Henry grabs a gun and questions the wounded officer about their real intentions. The officer admits that no one outside knows how to stop the virus. The authorities are developing different antidotes and testing them on infected people in the hope that one of them will work. He also reveals that investigators have discovered the virus is not natural. It was bioengineered. According to him, a secret organization created the virus by experimenting on rats before releasing it into the world. Now the government is desperately searching for a cure. Unable to face turning into a zombie, the officer takes his own life. Everyone is horrified. They realize the authorities will never allow them to leave and will continue using them as test subjects. They decide they must escape on their own. Ed explains that he has worked at the airport for many years. He knows about an underground tunnel connected to the drainage system. He believes they can escape through it. While he is explaining the route, the zombified Wilsey suddenly appears from above and grabs him. His gun jams, so another survivor activates the cargo lift controls. The heavy platform rises and crushes Wilsey. The group immediately leaves the container and follows Ed toward the underground tunnel. As they move, Jenny realizes that Henry has disappeared. They also hear zombies approaching from nearby. Everyone begins running faster. Meanwhile, Henry secretly removes a gun from his bag. It becomes clear that he has a hidden plan. While searching for a safe path, Jenny encounters the zombified Pola. Without hesitation, she strikes him repeatedly with an iron tool until he is no longer a threat. The survivors regroup inside an office. They study an airport map and locate the entrance to the drainage tunnel. George reveals that he grabbed Henry's bag while escaping. Inside, he found several unusual documents describing dangerous laboratory experiments. He also discovers a mysterious locked case. While examining it, the zombified Suzanne and Neil suddenly appear. Before they can attack, Henry arrives and shoots them. During the confrontation, Henry is bitten by a zombie. He opens the secret case, revealing several emergency injections and a special medicine. Finally, Henry confesses the truth. He admits that he was the one who brought the experimental rats onto the plane. He reveals that he belongs to a secret extremist organization that believes humanity is destroying the Earth. The group's scientists created a virus through experiments on rats. Their goal was to infect humans, turn them into violent zombies, and wipe out mankind. Henry points his gun at the survivors and demands the antidote. He threatens to kill George if they refuse. Ed tries to stop him, but Henry shoots him. Terrified, Jenny hands over the antidote. Henry then reveals that members of his organization are operating all over the world. That is how he was able to bypass airport security and bring the infected rats onto the plane. He also reveals that the virus has already been released across the globe. Henry declares that no matter what anyone does, no one will be able to stop the zombie apocalypse. To escape, he takes George hostage, grabs the airport map, and flees, leaving Jenny and Dr. Shayla behind. The two decide to reach the underground tunnel by taking a different route. Along the way, they encounter several zombies. They manage to fight them off one by one. However, many of their former companions have already turned into zombies. Realizing they cannot defeat them all, Jenny and Dr. Shayla retreat and hide inside a room. Dr. Shayla reveals that she took a pair of thermal goggles from one of the officers before escaping. She believes the goggles will help them see through the darkness and find a safe way out. Then Jenny notices that Dr. Shayla has been bitten during the fight with the zombies. She realizes that Shayla will soon transform as well. Knowing there is little time left, Dr. Shayla decides to stay behind and distract the zombies while Jenny rescues George from Henry. She runs outside and begins screaming. The noise attracts the zombies and they swarm toward her, giving Jenny a chance to escape. Jenny finally reaches the underground tunnel. Using the thermal goggles, she follows the bloodstains through the darkness. After walking a short distance, she discovers the airport map and Henry's torn shirt. Looking farther ahead, she finds George. George warns Jenny to stay back. He tells her the antidote failed and that Henry has already turned into a zombie. Ignoring the warning, Jenny rushes forward to rescue him. him. As she moves closer, blood drips onto her goggles. While she is cleaning them, the fully transformed Henry suddenly attacks. During the struggle, Jenny's goggles fall to the ground. She desperately tries to keep Henry from biting her. Watching the fight, George puts on the thermal goggles, picks up Henry's gun, and fires at him. The attack gives Jenny enough time to recover. She puts the goggles back on and defeats Henry using the same iron tools she had used earlier. At the same time, a massive fire begins spreading through the airport. Jenny and George realize the authorities are burning the airport to stop the outbreak from spreading further. They know they must escape immediately or they will die in the flames. George is frightened of moving through the dark tunnel. Jenny hands him the thermal goggles. Together, they enter the tunnel and continue their escape. Loud explosions echo from above, suggesting the airport is being destroyed. As they move forward, George notices that Henry bit Jenny during their fight. She is already beginning to show signs of infection. Even so, George refuses to abandon her. Despite the pain, Jenny continues helping George reach safety. Eventually, they arrive at the tunnel's exit. However, the exit is blocked by strong iron bars. Because George is small enough, he manages to squeeze through the narrow gap. Moments later, Jenny fully transforms into a zombie and lunges toward him. Fortunately, she cannot fit through the bars. George escapes alone. He knows that no one else will make it out alive. Meanwhile, Henry's organization has already spread the virus across the world. No cure has been discovered. George begins the long journey home on foot, carrying on alone as the zombie apocalypse continues. This is where the movie ends. Friends, what did you think of this movie? Let us know by leaving a like and sharing your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next video.